It's the epilogue, y'all. We made it. This is the very end of Cabinet of Wonders. Petra had to lie in bed for 2 weeks while she recovered from her fever. She wasn't unhappy, however, for she had visitors. Tomik, freed by her father, was at first thrilled to see Petra. The tin dog thumped her tail with fierce delight as she and Tomik stood by Petra's bedside. Atalanta had grown into a hulking, bristling, sweet-tempered beast. The dog's shoulders were powerful, but her slender flanks suggested that she might fill out even further. Oil dripped from her fangs as she wriggled her broad head under Petra's arm. She drooled all over Petra's pillow until it was splotched with grass green stains. Tomik proudly said that he had always known Petra would be able to accomplish what she had set out to do. He told her about his new inventions. Tomik had created an antidote to the worry vial flaw, a gel that coated the inside of the jar, just like Petra had suggested. Tomas Stakhan's gratitude had made Tomik virtual imprisonment at the sign of fire after Petra had disappeared a little more bearable. A little. Tomik was impressed when Petra described how she had used his marbles. That much water? He said. I'll have to fix that. As he mused about how to do that, he looked at his friend's tired face. A sudden awareness of how much danger Petra had faced without him rose in his heart and awoke the seeds of unpleasant questions. Should he have gone to Prague with Petra? Would their friendship change because he hadn't? Maybe you should leave it as it is, Petra suggested. Make the next bubble just like the first. It was pretty useful. She didn't notice the shadow that changed Tomik's expression. Astrofeld did, but he remained silent. David made her tell the story over and over again. Neil was his new hero, and he kept pestering his mother to make a red and gold pages jacket for him. Dita scolded Petra for talking too much, reading too much, staying up too late, and overall doing just about everything she could do to avoid getting better. Petra found herself breaking rules deliberately, just so Dita would complain that she'd have to check in on Petra every hour, since the girl clearly didn't have the wits to take care of herself. The cousins played this game with each other, and Petra realized, perhaps for the first time, that they played it with love. After his rare burst of eloquence, Joseph went quiet again. He nodded at Petra if he passed by her room. He said very little, as if he were embarrassed for having said so much, but then he was busy, for he had a lot to do as a laborer. During the winter months, there hadn't been much work related to farming, so Joseph hired himself out. He did odd jobs, repaired houses, and took care of horses. He rode Brashena. She obeyed him willingly, and he didn't ask too much of her, for they recognized that some affinity rested between them. Petra's father came to her bedroom several times a day. Although he was no longer blind, the family decided that this should remain a secret from everyone but their closest friends, the Stakhans. This meant that Mikhail Kronos rarely left the house, and if he did, he had to wrap bandages over his face and pretend to lean on the need to lean on someone's arm. He didn't like to fake blindness, but he knew that word of his miraculous recovery could so easily reach the prince. Petra and her father shared ideas as they had almost a year ago before Mikhail Kronos left for Prague to build a clock for Prince Rodolfo. But things were different. You could see this in the slightly stiff way they talked together, as if they each wanted to ask for that other's forgiveness. One morning, Petra woke up at dawn. This was another way in which things had changed. Ever since she had worked as a servant, she had gotten used to rising early and found that she liked it. Today she felt strong and well. She slipped from her bed and went to her father's library. Astrophil rode on her shoulder. Petra shut the library door behind her and then opened the secret compartment in the door. She pulled out the bag of invisible tools. This action marked another change, for, you see, she now knew why her father had hidden that bag away. It was because the tools could be used as weapons. She carefully sorted through the bag, trying not to prick her fingers on any sharp edges or points. Feeling along the invisible shape, she found one that was not really a tool. It was not really a screwdriver or a hammer or a wrench. It was a thin sword. She hefted it in her hand. It felt light. It felt as if it had been made for her. Indeed, it probably had been. The greatest change of all for her family had been shouted by her father. They were no longer safe. He hadn't meant to be so angry. He hadn't meant to accuse her. Petra knew this, but she also knew that some of the things that he said were true and might not be long before the prince came looking for them. She stared at the blade, even though she saw nothing. What are you going to do with it? She replied to Astrophil as if the answer were obvious. I'm going to practice.